Today for our daily cancellation, we turn to a new study that reveals something that will surprise no one. The New York Post reports, quote, Gen Z employees are entitled, too easily offended, lazy, and generally unprepared for the workplace, according to their new bosses. The dismal assessment of workers born between 1996 and 2010 comes in a poll of 966 business leaders across the country taken last month by the online education magazine Intelligent.com. Survey found 75% of execs felt most of the recent college grads they hired were unsuccessful. 60% said at least some of them had to be fired. The supervisors, who ranged from C-suite execs and business owners to senior and human resource managers at companies with more than 10 employees, said that they'll refrain from hiring Gen Z workers in the coming year.
Okay, I'm surprised to hear that. I know you said this comes to no surprise, but holy crap. 60% said at least some of them had to be fired. To fire 60%? If this is all true, and I don't know much about intellect.com, and I know this is a very conservative platform. I get it, but I do listen to both sides as much as I can. But if this is true about recent grads, I mean, college is just unsuccessful. College is not teaching kids or preparing them for the workforce at all, especially in the line of work. And what could it be? Could it be that there's just too much electives and they're not focused enough on their future jobs? There's just not enough internships for the jobs. So they have an idea and dip their toes in the waters of what they can expect. Now, I know it's easy to bash the younger generation. You know, they're learning. And I understand like what they call snowflakeism or wokeism or whatever you want to call it, very sensitive generation. Some of them are going to learn to toughen up, and I get it. And those will get through and be successful. But I also challenge, who raised Gen Z to be like this? Because parents have some to blame, and a lot of those parents are either millennials or they're Gen X.
Quote, with Gen Z, they've got a ton of access to information, a lot of different content, news sources, and influences, said Hugh Wynn, Chief Education and Career Development Advisor for Intelligent and a former Fortune 500 hiring manager. So when they go into a company that has more traditional norms, you get a situation where it doesn't always mesh. He told the Post about 17% of leaders believe Gen Z, who range in age from their teens to about 28, is often too difficult to manage, and 39% said they have poor communication skills. Jesson James, an international entrepreneur, business mentor, and speaker, said some Gen Zers struggle to articulate themselves, don't look you in the eye, and don't project their voices.
Well, they're calling us with some kind of disability. I don't want to say it out loud, but you can insinuate what it is. I can kind of understand that they're too difficult to manage and they have poor communication skills, because a lot of it, I hate this. I blame TikTok every chance I get, but yes, it's the TikTok generation. The instant gratification, endless mind-numbing scrolling. You know, there's a lot of things to blame here. You could blame parents, but you could also blame schools too. I could see that. Are schools not challenging kids as they grow up communication skills? Remember presentations in front of your class? It's terrifying. But you get through it and you learn, right? I don't know what goes on in the school system, so I really can't put much of a blame. I'm sure it's easy to say it, but I really don't know what's going on.
They lack charisma and personality skills, he told the Post, adding, I don't feel that they're in tune with what it takes to impress others. Now, keep in mind, by the way, that many Zoomers, especially the younger half of that generation, have spent all day on their phones every day of their lives, practically since birth. Mm-hmm. Most of their communication and engagement with the outside world has been facilitated by the phone. So it's no wonder that they struggle to relate and engage in person. You don't need to have personality skills on your phone. You don't need to have a personality at all, really.
That's so true. Because there's social cues that's needed when you have in-person communication. And I sadly, in my younger years, when I was first getting on the internet, yeah, I was more comfortable talking to people online than in person. And I think the internet, amplifies that. More and more people order online because they'd rather order online than go to a store and interact with people. Now we're going to have more self-checkout. I'd rather have a person who knows what they're doing to check on my items. I was not trained to manage their cash register, nor do I care. I just want to grab my stuff and go. I don't want to learn how to do self-checkout, but that's just me. And other people would rather have self-checkout because they don't have to interact with a person. And it's not good because you're never going to develop when you get criticized. You're never going to develop when you get rejected. For me, like as a guy, you ask a woman out and they say no, you feel terrible. And I know it chips away at you, but if you have a generation of guys who are growing up and they don't really experience rejection, they're going to be very sensitive to it from their first time they get rejected, especially as they get older. Hell, getting rejected at, job opportunities. You go through an interview, you think it went great and you don't get offered the job. That makes you feel terrible. But it's just a matter of how do you handle those emotions and move forward? And there's also money to be made for people who don't need to leave the house, right? Call up Uber Eats, the food comes to you. Get an education online. You never have to experience boredom again. Just go on your phone. Look at TikTok videos all day long. You'll be fine. Play video games for hours. And all it does is make people become more angry because they're very comfortable talking crap to others online. Yet in person, they're socially awkward. All right, I've gone on quite a bit of a tangent. Let me keep going.
On social media, you're constructing, an image that is maybe bears no resemblance really to your real personality. So you cannot give your child a phone, invite them to spend every waking hour of their day staring at the phone, and then scratch your head and wonder why they grew into adults with no social skills or personalities. It's inevitable. We'll return to that point in a moment. Reading on, quote, James has seen what he calls snowflakeism, some Gen Zers crumbling under even a little pressure. It's almost like you have to walk on eggshells around them, being super sensitive when managing them in case you offend them, upset them, or push them too far, he said. Some 20-something.
This is what I was just mentioning. They're too sensitive. They'd never experienced growing up with criticisms like what rejection is like. So now when they're as an adult, it's like walking on eggshells around them. One disappointment that they didn't do their job very well, the Gen Zers just fall apart. It's you screwed up. I know, and it's frustrating that you screwed up, but you need to rally up. You need to pick yourself up. You're always going to keep making mistakes. I get it. But how do you respond? And falling apart is not one way for Gen Z to respond. But, the parents allowed them to have tantrums as they grow up. So now they're adults and they think having a tantrum or falling apart or breakdown, whatever is okay until they get what they want. No, the real world is not like that.
Things have even brought a parent with them to job interviews for support. Corporate environments and office culture have relaxed in recent years when noted and are viewed differently between generations. But even with a more laid-back office environment, recent college grads don't dress professionally and don't use appropriate language for work. 19% of those surveyed said. About 20% of respondents said Gen Zers are often late to work. 15% said they frequently hand assignments in late. The younger generation is also...
Oh, hold on. Let me put back. About 20% of respondents said Gen Zers are often late to work. Hey, there's plenty of boomers, plenty of Gen X, plenty of millennials who are late for work. And I would say 20%, I would assume a lot of them will be late for work. But how often are they late to work, though? Very often? I mean, the employer could say 3 times in a quarter, that's often. Very subjective. And 15% frequently hand assignments in late? Well, what is frequent again? And I can also say there's plenty of millennials, Gen X, and boomers who frequently hand assignments in late. I know this from personal experience. So I'm willing to move that one to the side.
Gen Zers are often late to work. 15% said they frequently hand assignments in late. The younger generation is also more likely to use up their sick days than their older colleagues, recent studies have found. Side note.
Okay, what's wrong with using sick time? That's your earned sick time. Why would it bother you? As the employer, here's your sick time. You get 4 hours every month or paycheck or every 2 weeks, depending on the employer. It's your sick time to use it for anything. Maybe they need a mental health day, like a break from their job. That's okay. Who cares? Sometimes a break is necessary. So I don't like this notion that these Gen Z, these Zoomers, I guess they're called, they use up all their earned sick leave. Their leave that they earned, that they're entitled to, that the company provided for them. Say, if you do this, if you put in this much work in, we will give you this much sick leave and use it whenever you want. So they use it. Now, I would understand if they use all of it and require more. Sure, that's another discussion. But if they just use up all of their earned time, why is that a bad thing? Why is that a negative connotation? Because if you don't, sick leave for a lot of companies, it doesn't roll over. So they're probably just using it as much as they can because they know they're not going to get that time back. Not like a lot of PTO time.
On the sick day thing and this will be unpopular especially with younger people, but you shouldn't be using sick days. Okay, I've used sick days maybe twice in 7 years, and in both of those cases, because I lost my voice and I couldn't speak. You can't blame me for that. It's impossible to do a podcast when you can't speak. And even then, and anyone who has been watching the show for a while, you know this. I still came into the office and recorded a video with subtitles when I lost my voice, if you recall. But generally speaking, again, I know this is unpopular, but sick days are for children, okay? They're for kids in school who are trying to stay home so they don't have to take a test that day. Like, with rare exception, taking a sick day as an adult should be pretty embarrassing for you. Calling your boss and saying, sorry, I can't come in today, my tummy hurts, is humiliating. You need to be at work, okay? Adults don't have time to be sick. You don't have time for it. I was just having this conversation with my kids recently, actually, because I was kind of under the weather, and my kids were aware of that, and they said, "Well, so why are you going to work?" I said, "Because I don't have time to be sick. Okay, I don't know. I can't be. I don't have time. But you are sick, yeah, but I don't have time for it. So it's like I'm operating as though I'm not."
Okay, as much as I respect him, and I do, and I disagree with him. Because not everyone's the same. Some people have like certain conditions, disabilities, that requires them to have an extensive amount of sick leave. And if it's earned, they should be able to use it without question. Now, I understand, again, if they've gone beyond their earned sick leave and they still need sick leave, yeah, then okay, there might be an issue there. But if it's earned sick leave, who cares? It says that your tummy hurts. What if you got like really bad diarrhea? What if you've got a stomach bug? And you have to go to the bathroom, to the toilet every 15 seconds. You can't work in those conditions. And I'm very familiar of going more than a year without using a single day of sick leave. But you can use your sick leave for doctor's appointments, or if you have kids, their appointments too. And after COVID, we just learned the importance of sick leave. If you're sick, don't bring it to the office. Maybe you could work from home. That'd be great if you're capable. Or just stay home and don't get everyone else sick. Like, I get what he means. Like, not every little detail, little tiny thing needs to be considered a sick thing. Like, oh, I stubbed my toe. Like, I get it. You can walk that one off and show up to work and earn. But this is I guess you could say a gray area of where, there could be so many variables. So I find this a little closed-minded. People are different. Some people have disabilities, different conditions, reasons that they have to use sick leave. And, there's people that, I myself, I've gone long times without using a single day of sick leave. But again, sick leave for a lot of companies doesn't roll over. So that I can understand why people try to use it as much as possible. Because it's almost like free time off, use it or lose it type of situation.
Finishing up the article, quote, but many bosses are trying to tame the immature hires, even mandating office etiquette training. 54% of the company leaders surveyed said they offer the training, and many mandate it for new hires, and a quarter of them specifically require it for Gen Z recruits. So,
actually, the office etiquette requirement, I'm a little torn on that. Like, there should be parents and teachers should teach them like a standard of office etiquette. Or maybe rare occasion that maybe it's a particular employer that says everyone needs to look like this. Let us demonstrate to you what we're talking about. Like, this is the sharp, super well-fitted clothing that we want you in the workforce. Not like baggy, nothing. You need to have a good haircut. Kind of like strict. I mean, for me, it was like the strict one was like the military when I was there. Like the hair here can't touch the ears type of situation. Depending on how strict it is. And it depends on the company culture. But every employer I've gone to, like HR, you'll have a meeting with HR as a new hire, and they'll go over this. Like, this is, our culture and the etiquette that we expect from you. Please, this is how you should dress appropriately for our job or for the office. So I don't see why they're ousting Gen Z for this one here, because this was across the board. Millennials, Gen X, Boomers.
It for new hires, and a quarter of them specifically require it for Gen Z recruits. So The fundamental problem for Gen Zers in the workplace is that many of them, not all, but many, have never really been introduced to, and this is really what it comes down to, they've never been introduced to a concept called obligation, otherwise known as responsibilities or duties. Man, have you heard of Rose Sparks, this dual action prescription murder?
I'm going to skip over this ad, but I do understand, Gen Z has less obligation because they're growing up with more privilege now compared to older generations. And again, I fault the people raised them. And at the same time, you'd want your kids to have a better life than what you had growing up. So you're just circling around about the complaint of something that the older generation created to begin with.
They are failing in the workplace because work is all about fulfilling your responsibilities, even if you don't want to or don't feel like it, even if it's stressful or difficult, even if it makes you feel bad, even if you're anxious about it, okay, even if you're feeling depressed, even if you're whatever, you still have to do your job. And being at whatever you do for a living, being at a job is to be in a place where the main thing, like, yes, your value in that place depends on whether or not you are performing the tasks that you're supposed to perform.
He's 100% right here. I know there's if you generalize or lump all the Gen Z together, he is describing what it is right now in the workforce. I'm not oblivious to this too. It's just for Gen Z, if they're seeking opportunities to grow, they need to understand how to go beyond this. To really work hard and really prove that you want to be there and get promoted. If you're one of those Gen Zs that's complaining to your boss I'm feeling anxious, or you have anxiety, or you're feeling depressed, whatever, your boss, I hate to say it, they just don't care. They don't want to hear it. All they care about is having employees that can do the job. So if you're Gen Z and you're watching this right now, and you really want to move up at your current job, don't complain about anything. I mean, bring things that are of a concern. Yeah, that could harm others. I understand that. But every little thing, like your emotions, your feelings, it's not going to help you. What you want to do is try to give a good, positive attitude, even when times are tough there, even when the job really sucks and it's hard. But if you can just do the job and do the job well, and you can be the go-to person that they can count on, they're going to go to you. And I feel like there's plenty of opportunities right now. And I wouldn't say it's easy, but or maybe it is easy. I don't know how difficult it is for Gen Z these days, because based on how they grew up and their sensitivities. But if you can just go above and beyond, I don't think it's that hard. But again, I'm comparing it with my generation, and of course his generation is comparing to Gen Z. You will succeed more in life and be well ahead of others.
And that doesn't mean that your value as a person, as a human being, is dependent on that, but your value in the job is entirely dependent on whether or not you're performing the tasks that you're supposed to perform. And that is the first and really only thing that matters. And that is, that's the environment you're in when you're in the workplace, where it's always like, what have you done for me lately? What are you doing? That's what I care about. And that was always going to be an environment that's very difficult for a lot of people that were raised the way that the kids are raised today. Perhaps the number one skill required to be a functional adult, much less a successful one, is the ability to do things you don't want to do. And to not only do them, but do them well. This is a facet of adult life that is so basic, it's so fundamental that in previous generations, it didn't even need to be articulated, right? Nobody would have even needed to explain this to you. But these days we have multiple generations, not just Gen Z, this applies to many millennials as well, who really do struggle with even the concept that they should have to do things they don't want to do and fulfill obligations that are not fun to fulfill. For them, in their world, they should be able to get out of anything simply by saying, well, this makes me feel bad. The idea of forging ahead and doing what must be done in spite of how you feel is foreign to them. Successful adults know that you can't let feelings guide you. You have to act and do what you need to do, and the feelings will follow behind. You can't wait until you feel happy and then act. You act first, and eventually you'll find that you also feel happy. Happiness is a byproduct of a well-lived life. It is not the starting point. It's not the entryway. Unsuccessful and dysfunctional adults try to flip this around. They insist that they must feel happy first, and then they'll act. But you can't conjure happiness out of the ether like that. You can't sit around waiting to feel it. The more you sit around waiting, the more your life falls apart around you, and the more unhappy you are as a result of that. So it's a vicious cycle that never ends.
He's so right about like everything he just said there. I don't know if Gen Z and maybe my generation, millennials, we expected that work would be fun. Work would be amazing. Our first job would be awesome. Unfortunately, for most of us, your first job is not going to be fun. It's going to be hard, and it's going to be exhausting. It's not going to be enjoyable. You're going to do things you didn't think you'd do for money, like you have to clean the toilet at the bathroom at the office or something you don't normally do. And instead of complaining about that, saying you're depressed, you hate the job, it's supposed to humbleize you. You're supposed to understand what real hard work is like, so you can appreciate other people who do those hard works for a living. The janitors at the school or at the office, the people who cook or serve your food at the restaurant, the customer service representatives at anywhere you go to, or just to enjoy maybe a theme park or something. You know, those jobs are hard too, but hey, they're giving you a great experience. Those jobs, they're supposed to humbleize you because they don't pay that well and they're hard. And it's supposed to humbleize you to think, okay, do I want to do this for the rest of my life? Or do I need to do something else? How do I get out of this situation? It's not impossible, but you really have to think about, okay, what do I need to do? Do I need to develop a skill? What skill do I want to learn that's going to pay me well? Do I have to go to school for this? Because the reality is most jobs, they're not fun. They're hard. You have to spend hours a day and hours, multiple hours a week, like so long, to make whatever BS pay just to barely get by. That's what the start of adulthood is like. And you're supposed to realize, like, dang, I don't know what I thought about adulthood would be like, but it doesn't start out great. But how do I achieve greatness? Because it's anything great that you want in life, it's not easy to get there. If you envision yourself to be all rich and this and that, it's going to require work. It's going to require a lot of sacrifice. It's going to require a lot of hard work for yourself. You have to learn to work hard for yourself. What skills do I need to get? What do I have to do to achieve that? What is step one? All those things. All right, let me keep going.
And then they'll act. But you can't conjure happiness out of the ether like that. You can't sit around waiting to feel it. The more you sit around waiting, the more your life falls apart around you, and the more unhappy you are as a result of that. So it's a vicious cycle that never ends. Many people in Gen Z struggle with this concept, but that's not entirely their own fault. It's the job of parents to convey this message to their children. My own kids struggle with this, as all kids do. And so sometimes, every parent has heard this. I'll tell my kids to do something, clean your room, do the dishes, whatever. And sometimes you'll get the response, oh, but I don't want to. And for a child, this is a logical rebuttal, right? They don't want to complete a certain task, and therefore they shouldn't have to. This is how their mind works. And I was just having this conversation with my 4-year-old recently. And I told her to clean up her room. And this was her answer. Well, I don't want to. And I'm explaining to her, well, you don't want to, but you're still going to. Okay? You need to, even if you don't want to. And as I'm talking to her, I can see in her face that she really is, she's struggling to understand that concept. She doesn't quite understand. It's actually a disconnect here because she's 4. And so for her, it's like, well, wait a second, but I don't want it. What do you mean I should do? But I don't want to. Why should I have to do a thing I don't want to do? And this is one of the great struggles as a parent is to get this message across to your kids. It's up to me as the parent to help them understand that just because they don't want to do it doesn't mean they don't have to do it. Nobody wants to clean their room, yet the room needs to be cleaned, right? So we're at an impasse. What must be done and what you want to do are not aligned. And whenever that happens, the former must win out. And it's my job as a parent to teach my children this. If you don't teach your children, they will grow into adults who have the mentality of children. They won't make it in the workforce. They won't make it in life generally. And many older people did not instill these life lessons in their kids, and now they sit around complaining about the generation that they failed to properly raise. That's what it really comes down to. And that is why these Gen Zers in the workforce and their parents are all today canceled. If you like,
I like the last bit he had about raising his kid. Like the understanding, like, yeah, accomplishing something that you don't like to do, like cleaning your room, making your bed every morning. There's like a reward for this when you clean your room. It's nice to be in a house in a clean environment instead of a filthy one. You should learn, like, when you go visit to some friends' houses, you're gonna have that one friend who's a freaking slob, and it makes you feel uncomfortable going there. Do you want to be that kind of person? Or do you like going to your other friend's house because it's always nice and clean in there? In addition to what he said, I mean, it's just when you do something like you clean your room, you do your laundry, you do like all this, the stuff that you really don't want to do, but you have to, you should feel like a sense of an accomplishment though. Like you got something done. Like you got over the mental struggle barrier in your head of there's a resistance that that's something you really don't want to do, but it needs to be done. And you're able to push through and you got it done. Like going to the gym. Like I don't like exercising. I don't like going to the gym, but when I do and I get out, I feel great. I'm happy I did that because I accomplished something hard and I got over myself. You know, the whole concept of like, you know, being clean and doing your chores, it really didn't hit me, unfortunately, until like an adult, and also when I was in the military. Because, you know, growing up as a Hispanic, the women, Latinas, they spoil their boys like they're a prince and they can't do any wrong. They really do. My mother always cleaned after me. And it wasn't until I was an adult, the importance of cleaning, because my mom's not going to come over and clean. I have to be the one who does it, because if I don't clean, women are not going to be attracted to me. They're not going to want to come over to my place. And when I got in the military, we do a lot of cleaning there. I thought I had an understanding of cleaning. I really learned how to clean. And anyone who enlists in the military can tell you how much they clean. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. If you made it this far in this video, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, notification bell, all that stuff. And please leave a comment. I do read them. And until next time, bye.